social factor.
Alright, welcome back to The Social Factor with Josh and David.
Hello.
So, you might be wondering why we're doing this so early if you're listening live. Obviously, it's not a question if you're listening to the podcast later on. But we are unable to do the podcast at 7 today due to other personal things going on. So we are doing it a few hours earlier. So in last week's episode, we discussed the true stories behind Annabelle and Chucky, because they're like almost identical, the true stories behind them. Mm-hmm. And then we also talked about the true stories behind the Conjuring, the first movie. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the true stories behind the Conjuring 2, Enfield Poltergeist, and then Haunting in Connecticut, and the second Haunting in Connecticut, Ghosts of Georgia. So, and next week, after this episode, we are going to do a different topic other than the true story behind like horror movies, even though we have some to go yet. Even though we have some to go yet for this. Were you trying to look for a script or what?
Well, yeah, I'm trying.
Here, you take this for now.
Alright.
Because I actually technically do have it open on the desktop here.
Cool.
So.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
He's looking for the script for the show. We do have more hauntings, movies based off of hauntings that have happened in real life to talk about. However, because we don't really want to bore you with weeks of this, we're gonna branch off into a different topic next week, and then we'll come back to some more of these.
Nice.
In the coming weeks, and then eventually we'll cover this whole list of horror movies based off of real life stories. And not all of these have to do with hauntings. Some of them, are serial killers, psychological thrillers, and stuff like that. UFOs, whatnot. But we will hopefully have these all covered in season 1. If we don't, we'll just bring some into season 2.
Yep.
Because we got a lot of topics
to discuss.
Every episode, we think of new topics to discuss, and we add them to our list of topics. When we're just living our everyday lives, we think of a new topic to discuss. We add it to the list. So yeah, we probably have plenty of content to bring into season 2 at this point.
We sure do.
So at this point, we are going to discuss the true story behind The Conjuring 2, the Enfield Poltergeist. Now, you did mention, David, that you didn't understand why they call it the Enfield Poltergeist.
Correct.
Did you find anything on that? No?
Actually not. Because if you look at it as a paranormal investigator,
yeah,
you have like 4 different categories. The last 2 talk about the poltergeist and demonic hauntings, okay? And, poltergeist being the third, the worst case scenario is a demon.
Unless, was it a poltergeist in real life, but because of Hollywood trying to amp it up, they made it look like a demonic haunting, even though it may have just been a poltergeist haunting. Could that be a scenario?
That's possible. But if you look at what occurred, and, like Janet being levitated,
mm-hmm.
that's not usually a poltergeist thing. It's usually demonic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actual evidence from 1977 that she was actually levitated.
Right, exactly.
People actually witnessed this. The fact that she lost her memory like she did while speaking in someone else's voice,
mm-hmm.
Those things tend to fall more under... I mean, poltergeist and demons are hard to figure out
mm-hmm.
at times. But at the same token...
It is hard to distinguish, the claims between the two of them, because they're similar in a way, but also they're very different in a way, too.
They are. Where you have more issues happening with demonic possessions or demonic entities than you would poltergeists. Poltergeists are usually known as tricksters, but they can get violent as well. They can leave bruises and stuff like that. But the thing is it depends on what type of poltergeist you're dealing with, and also what type of demonic being you're dealing with.
Exactly. Because, first of all, a lot of the claims in real life were very similar to those in the movie, I will say. I don't exactly know where the crooked man comes in, or where the nun the nun person comes in, per se. Maybe.
Well, there was a lot of Hollywood in the movies themselves.
Exactly, but I mean, it was. I'll be honest. It was very genius of Warner Brothers to put that nun character in there, even though
they got a new character to base their next movie on.
Exactly, because no one really thought much of it, like how this character. You know how, like, in all of the Conjuring movies, they have in the beginning they have a character that they introduce that doesn't have to do with the actual haunting in the movie. However, it's like they take this character and they can create a whole other series off it. Like Annabelle didn't have anything to do with the Conjuring 1, just that they briefly talked about it at the beginning. But now they got this whole Annabelle series.
Well, and the reason is because Ed and Lorraine Warren actually followed and investigated the Annabelle story.
Exactly.
And then ended up in the Conjuring.
Exactly. And then for instance, like in the Conjuring 2, the nun, they started the show with they started the movie with the nun and everything.
Yeah.
However, then they even though the nun does in the movie it has to do with the actual haunting happening, but
Correct.
we don't necessarily know if it has anything to do with it in real life, because at the end of spoiler alert, but you should have seen it by now if you really care. At the end of the Conjuring 2, Lorraine Warren is up in the bedroom, and she is basically casting this demon this nun this demon in the shape of a nun back to hell. So there's no mention of the nun actually having anything to do with the haunting in real life, but she technically does play a part in the movie. However,
correct.
And if you notice that Warner Brothers is actually branching both the nun and the Crooked Man into
their own series.
Into their own series.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the nun is she's already scary looking, but then she had those really nasty sharp teeth. Okay, and she exposed herself as being a demon.
When I saw The Conjuring 2, I thought to myself, they did a brilliant job of making that nun look scary, because I didn't really find like the the possessed woman or anything like that, or the Annabelle doll, in The Conjuring 1 to be that creepy. But in The Conjuring 2, that nun is creepy.
Creepy as heck.
I know, right?
They did really well in making her. I mean, ultimately, the Conjurings, the movies, are really meant for scary movies.
Exactly.
Okay, they're not meant to be totally factual.
Exactly. Right? Oh, exactly. Because Hollywood has to amp it up and stuff like that. And then another thing that I just realized through what we study in the paranormal field and what kind of theories are and stuff like that, and what like demonology says and whatnot. In that entire movie, that nun who is supposed to be a demon or whatever, she's in the shape of a religious figure. She's wearing the robe, but not only that, I'm pretty sure she has a cross on her. So my thought is, how was she able to have all that religious stuff on her and not be affected by it?
Well, number one, it's just a representation that she's wearing. Okay, she's wearing a complete body that represents a nun. Okay?
Right.
In essence, that cross isn't real.
Right.
It's part of her. Yeah. Oh, that's creepy looking.
I know, right?
Yeah. It's just part of her. There are the nasty teeth.
Yeah.
It's part of her representation to her victims.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, see, this is a movie scene that I got out of Google Images. See, she's wearing a cross on her.
But again, it's just the image. It's not a true cross. It's not a blessed cross. Okay. It's actually just her appearance. Because, remember, she can disappear anytime she wants.
Right.
So she is that nun who is really a mist, taking manifestation of an actual nun. And most likely she may have been a true nun at first. Mm-hmm. Okay, and most likely we'll find that out when the movie comes out. Yeah,
by the way, this movie, I didn't even know that they were that far in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought it was a... They actually have a trailer on this already, and the release date is September 7th of this year.
Yeah.
For The Nun.
Well, I knew they were really working on it. Show me the picture of the stick person.
Stick man? The Crooked Man.
Crooked Man, you call it,
huh? I don't know if it's actually a physical being.
No, it's supposed to be demon, too.
Well, right. The Crooked Man trailer, but I don't know. The Crooked Man is a 2016 film. So it already came out. Maybe are they like?
Why haven't we heard about it?
Are they doing like a different movie off of it or something? Because the Crooked Man, this movie came out before the second Conjuring.
I don't remember hearing about it. There was a crooked map.
This.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I remember this from the movie, from the Conjuring 2 movie.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That would scare the crap out of you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
These images will be on our Facebook page. Don't worry.
Yep. It's although I like his outfit. I mean, he's got like this, maroon purple type of outfit. But here's the thing. Remember, I told you what I came across one night, demonic wise.
Yeah.
His arms are long. His legs are long. Mm-hmm. He's probably bald. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
And this is when Ed Warren is hiding inside of that thing in the movie.
Yeah, that's creepy.
That is creepy. Dang.
Yeah, I probably shit myself. And I've seen some nasty stuff in the world, but...
yeah. But anyway, should we kind of get into, like, the true story behind this?
Yes.
So... First of all the names in the movie were the exact same. I mean, they didn't change any of that. Just like The Conjuring, the first one. They didn't change the mother's name. Was Peggy Hodgson. Mm-hmm. This happened at 284 Green Street, Brimsdown, Enfield, England.
Yeah, very good.
And first of all, before anybody says like, "Oh, why'd you say the address out loud?" Now people are going to go, you know how easy it was to find this address?
Yeah, it's public information.
This address was literally in an article that I read about the true story behind this. So, yeah. This address is way too easy to find. Plus, it's mentioned in the
show.
Is it?
I believe it's mentioned in the show.
Okay.
What really impressed me about this is the Enfield part. Now, any rifle enthusiast, if you understand, the weapons used during World War I and World War II, the Enfield was a bolt-action rifle used by the British military in World War I and World War II. I think it was discontinued in the 1960s, actually.
Yeah.
But, surprised that that's probably where they made the weapons in the first place.
So why is this listed like cities within cities or something like that? It's like I'm get why like is it where like if it's a big enough city or something like that, do they put smaller cities?
They probably live in a suburb of Enfield, England. Okay, because Enfield I know is a city by itself, but it's like Green Bay and Schwabenland.
Okay,
same concept. We have in Germany we have the same thing. We have Offenbach am Main.
I never understood all that stuff. Like why they have like
their districts.
Oh,
districts. Was in a city. Okay, like as I said, suburbs is the American way of looking at it. You have a suburb within a city.
Okay.
And then you have the urban aspect of it.
Makes sense. So the children's names, they were Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy. And if you remember from the movie, Janet was the one that was most affected by this.
Correct. She was a target.
Yeah, exactly. So everything began happening on August 31st of 1977, which, is a good timeline because the Annabelle and both Annabelle and The Conjuring happened in 1970.
77.
No, the first Conjuring movie, and Annabelle.
Yeah, that was like 72.
All that took place in 1970.
70. Okay, that's right. You're right.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
This takes place in 1977. So we're not doing prequels here. We're doing actual after events and stuff like that. So how it all started. Janet, who I just mentioned, she woke up in the middle of the night with her bed shaking violently. And as a natural reaction to someone who was only like 12 at the time, because all these kids were roughly somewhere within like their lower teens.
Yes.
Naturally, she called her mom for help. So Peggy, her mom, she entered, unfortunately, when the shaking had stopped. So she didn't get to witness it, and basically everything had returned to normal when she got there, so she thought her children were just joking. Mm-hmm. The following evening, Peggy heard a huge crash upstairs, and she proceeded to run up the stairs, prepared to yell at her kids, because when they called her the night before and said that nothing was happening, so she thought they were joking, and now something's happened again, and like, the dang kids,
Yeah, of course. Any parent would do that.
So, she ran up, prepared to yell at her kids, and she entered the room and saw a big chest of drawers just move on its own. So she actually saw it that time. And she tried to push the chest drawers back. However, she couldn't. So it was as if it was, it was being blocked by an invisible force, like it wanted to trap the family in the room.
Correct. And
there's not the really whole lot of spirits that can put out that amount of force or energy.
That's why you go from category 1 to category 2, 3, or 4 at that point.
Exactly.
Because you're dealing with something more complex.
Because theoretically, only 3 and 4 really
have that kind of power.
Really have that kind of power. Yeah. Exactly.
And that would be poltergeist and a demon.
Yeah, 4 more than 3, but like I said, they're similar in nature, but also different in nature.
Correct.
So, as you can imagine, no one got any sleep that night because strange noises kept occurring. So, Peggy went next door to her neighbors to get help. And her neighbors' names were Vic and Peggy, not Peggy Nottingham. Ironically, this is what I found in the research, that the mom and their neighbor had the same name.
Yeah. That happens.
Vic and Peggy Nottingham. And Nottingham and Hodgson are very, very British last names.
Very much. Especially Nottingham. I mean,
yeah,
it's a location in England.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. So they, Vic and Peggy, their neighbors, they went to help them. Vic, went in and investigated. He said that he could make out noises knocking on the bedroom ceiling. And now, I'm assuming this is upstairs, because if you hear noises, that would be the attic. So maybe these things maybe whatever this was hanging out in the attic and, was knocking or whatever. Because we only see the Hollywood version. We don't You
don't know the real version, but it's recorded as
exactly.
well.
And I will play some actual recordings that I found.
Okay.
If hopefully I didn't accidentally exit out of the tab. Otherwise, I'll just have to post them on the Facebook page.
Okay.
But anyway, so Margaret actually recalled seeing a man similar to that of Vic's body size. And he was kind of like a well-built man, I guess, kind of. It did describe his body size on the research that I found, but I didn't think that really his body size was all that important to write down, So,
however, he saw a reflection or a being that looked like him,
Yeah. So back then, when this happens and, paranormal stuff is not really common, not known, what do? You call the police on something like this. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, call the police. So they arrived at the house, and they did experience everything that the family was experiencing. And I don't know if they were just scared out of their mind or if they just didn't know what to do because they basically just said, this is not a police matter.
This is out of our jurisdiction.
Exactly. They're just like, we're leaving.
Yep.
Not a police matter.
Abandon the entire family.
Yeah. So, Caroline, or Carolyn, however you pronounce that, Heaps saw a chair move without cause. Now, we have no idea when Carolyn Heaps actually showed up. But, if you recall in the movie, she was the woman who was not very nice.
Wasn't she a neighbor?
Huh?
Or was she part of an investigative team?
I don't know. I don't remember what she was a part
Yeah.
of. It's been like a year since I've actually seen
that's
the
the
Conjuring
problem.
2.
I'm having a hard time here.
But I do remember that she was the very mean woman that no one liked in the movie because literally after everything that happened, she always blamed it on the kids and people being like, these are just kids,
Playing a prank on you.
Playing a prank on you. Exactly. So, my phone's ringing. It's funny in the other room.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Don't let it distract you.
Anyway, well, it could be my fiance and she might need something.
You want me to take over?
Take over for just a second.
Okay. Hi, guys. It's me, David. Sorry, he's just got to answer that phone. So basically, let me go back here. So the officers left saying it was not a police matter. So the Hodgsons then contacted the press, who sent Daily Mail photographer Graham Norris. He said all hell broke loose in the house, with things flying around and people screaming, and managed to capture some of these weird events on his camera. Now, being an outsider coming into a potentially haunted house and then witnessing that would be very difficult for even the bravest people in the world. Sorry here. Okay. Here's the amazing part. BBC, which is British broadcasting company, also visited the house, but found their recordings had been erased after leaving the house with their equipment. Family contacted the Society of Physical Research, who sent over Maurice Gruce and Guy Playfair. Now, I just found something out today, which was kind of amazing and kind of damning for Ed and Lorraine Warren. The last person I mentioned, Guy Playfair, he was part of the Psychical Research Society. He went on an interview just, I think it was last year. I believe it was a British.
I'm back.
Okay, great.
All right.
It was a British radio station.
Yeah.
And Guy Playfair was interviewed and was asked a few questions about Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, he did not speak well of them at all. In fact, he claims that Ed and Lorraine Warren only spent one day there, uninvited, okay, and then ended up claiming that they had all this evidence about this case. And he's not the only one thinking about that. Thinking about the Warrens like that. There was another gentleman, I believe it was Maurice Gruce, actually, from the same society, who also met them, and they kind of met, Ed Warren, and kind of let it go. They didn't think much of it. I know that Guy Playfair, according to his statement, met Lorraine, and he didn't say much about her. He said she was a lovely lady, but he didn't have much to say about Ed Warren. So that was kind of damning information that I found. And the radio guy, he did a good job asking other questions. So in the movie, it seems like you got Guy Playfair there, and you got other people other investigators there at one point, and then all of a sudden, who comes in? Ed and Lorraine Warren, right?
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly they finished this entire case.
Well, it was when they were filming The Conjuring 2. It
was Lorraine that advised.
Well, yeah, when they were filming because Ed died in 2003. But I'm saying when they were filming The Conjuring 2, they brought Ed and Lorraine Warren. The producers brought Ed and Lorraine Warren out to the the movie set. They brought the actual victims of the Enfield Poltergeist. They didn't bring the Graham Norris or any of those other people.
Okay.
Just the victims and Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I believe it was Janet, but I'm not sure. One of the first of all, only Janet and Margaret are alive now.
Johnny, what happened to the boys?
Johnny died of cancer when he was 14, I believe.
How much?
14.
Wow.
And then I believe Billy, something happened to him, but I wasn't sure.
Wasn't it a car accident?
I'm not sure. I just know that Billy died of not Billy. Margaret, one of the kids, somewhere around there.
Well, the one thing I found out about this case as I was doing my own research, because Josh and I will do separate research.
Mm-hmm. Let me just quickly finish.
Sure.
Mine. It was stated in an interview that one of the kids said that it was really the Warrens who ultimately helped them.
Interesting, because what I found was just the opposite. But if she openly stated that, then I'm going to take that word for it. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Warrens because, they represent the pioneers of American paranormal investigations.
Mm-hmm.
So, hearing this information kind of, it's a little upsetting. But a lot of investigators, there's a group of investigators that were at the case that actually believed it was a complete hoax. Okay, quite a few that had issues with this case.
Mm-hmm.
And it did come out years later, like 40 years later, that 2%, quote unquote, of the evidence was actually a hoax. So they kind of like damned themselves, but there was also times when, like Guy, for instance, the kids would play a prank on him or act like an event is occurring, and Guy would actually call it out, saying no, that's not actually evidence that you're providing. That's fake. So there was some tension in the entire community. This was a nationwide thing that the entire nation heard about this case. BBC covered it. Radio stations were doing it. Talking about this family that's going through this most recorded case in world history. Okay,
mm-hmm.
And
one of them.
Well, that's what they're claiming. Okay, and to hear that there was potentially some fake information or, pranksters or hoax within the actual investigation, it makes you start, you start questioning what you believe
mm-hmm.
regarding this case.
Yeah, exactly. Where'd you leave off in the script? Right.
Yeah, here.
Okay. So I'll just so Guy Playfair, he didn't witness anything at first. But then he saw Lego pieces flying across the room, and marbles and other things were extremely hot when he touched them. Basically things that were in the area. Guy also witnessed a T-shirt leaping off the kitchen table, and it flew into the other side of the room while he was standing by it. So, like I said, there are stuff, that, like David said, 2%, because there are stuff that, that actually, that...
The investigators actually witnessed.
Yeah, exactly. Also, basically, furniture spun, sofas levitated, and mumbled there. Family members were often thrown out of their beds at night.
No. How do you deal with an invisible force throwing you right out?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't hit it back or anything. Because you don't know where it is.
Exactly. And on another occasion, Maurice heard one of the children cry out for help as a poltergeist was actually holding on to their legs. And when he tried to pull the child free, he couldn't. He couldn't do it at all. Guy claimed that Janet seemed to be the main target, and at one point did in fact speak in a deep-voiced growl, which belonged to a man named Bill, who actually said, "Just before I died," now this is, quote
unquote, yeah.
quote unquote, "just before I died, I went blind, and then I had a hemorrhage, and I fell asleep, and I died in the chair in the corner downstairs," which was actually recorded on tape. Right there is where the quote was supposed to end. My bad. The quote ends at died in the corner downstairs. So, and you remember this actually in the movie too, when Janet is actually speaking in this low voice. So they're like, okay, is she doing it herself, or is something actually trying to speak through her? So she sat in the actual chair where this man died, and then the camera doesn't actually let you see this man at any point in the movie. It always blurs her out in the background. Well,
Bill Wilkinson, there are times when you actually see him sitting in the chair.
Right. But those are just like what do I say? Glimpses.
Glimpses, yeah. I mean, it's usually someone passing by it and sees him, and then he's gone afterwards.
Exactly. For instance, also when I remember in the movie, one of the girls were sitting on the coffee table, turning on the TV, and all of a sudden the TV went off, and someone was sitting in the chair behind her. She turned around, no one was there. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, you get glimpses of him, but you never actually see the actual man sitting in.
Correct.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, you remember that part where they basically put duct tape on her mouth, and they actually did that in the movie too. Mm-hmm. And they actually gave her a cup of water and told her to drink from it, and that they actually did that in the movie too.
Yep. And her voice never changed.
Well, her voice changed to the actual man's.
That's what I mean. That was during the process, okay, while he was speaking through her. And so, yeah, those were tests to see if it would change her voice, like go back to normal.
And for the longest time, I thought that this Bill guy was the actual thing that was haunting the house, when in fact...
In a way, he was. But
however,
there were multiple entities.
However, there was him, and then there was a stronger entity that basically...
used him as a puppet.
Was using Bill as a puppet. The man's name was Bill Wilkins, and he was an old council member, and I'm assuming that basically at the time when he passed away, councilman of the city or something?
Yeah. Of the local city.
Yeah, because he did have a bit of a British accent, I think, because I remember how he talked when he was on the film or whatever. It was like, "My name is Bill Wilkins."
That's like I forget what they call it, but that's a very like the common tongue, like for the lower echelon. It's not like high English. It's actually more like common English.
Exactly, and it was kind of like more of the type that they spoke back then.
Yep, I forget what they called it. There's a name for that type of dialect. I forget what it is though.
Okay.
Yeah, just like Hochdeutsch and flat German.
Yeah. And by the way, people, with only about 10 minutes left in this, we probably ain't going to have time to get to the Haunting in Connecticut movies. No. So we'll do another time, and we'll just do this one. But anyway, so, like I said, experiments were done to make sure that it wasn't just Janet producing the low-pitched sound, trying to do a prank or something.
They took the audio pieces and analyzed them.
Yep, so they put tape on her mouth. Still, she was able to speak like that. Made her drink a long sip of water. Still talked like that.
Well, the one thing about that is she'd go into a trance.
Oh, exactly.
A trance state, and then all of a sudden this voice would come out of this young lady's mouth, and definitely it sounded like it wasn't part of her voice.
Oh, exactly. And plus, when you're when you're that young, it's usually very difficult for a female to make that low pitch of a noise.
At the age of 12, even boys can't do it.
Well, exactly.
Like they haven't dropped yet.
The reason I said mostly female is because I remember in The Shining, the little boy, he would do this, and then he would use that low pitch voice.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the voice in this one, honestly, it sounded like he was just making like a low pitched, in the Shining, he was making like a low pitched noise with his voice. However, in the Enfield Poltergeist, it sounded nothing like her.
Mm-mm. At
all.
Not at all.
Clear as day. I mean, hey, if that was actually her, she would have made damn good money being a voice artist. That's for damn sure.
Sounding like an old man? Yeah.
I know, exactly. Doing voiceovers and stuff like that. If she was actually able to make that noise.
Yeah. Because
that's pretty good. That is very good. But yeah, I mean, as far as the hoaxes with it, I do remember that there was a lot of hoax that came out with it when this movie came out. I don't think it was last year. It was
2016, right?
2016, end of 2016, somewhere around there. But anyway, there was a lot of speculation. Even in the movie, they even implemented the part about people thinking it was a hoax into the movie.
These were investigators that were there.
Uh-huh.
Called it a hoax.
Exactly, that Caroline Heaps person that I mentioned in there. She was the main person that thought that it was a hoax or whatever. And, she was mean. She spoke her mind to the family and said, she didn't believe it or whatever. And then, right when Ed and Lorraine Warren were about to leave in the movie, they had to be called onto other cases. They were being called onto other cases that they had to assist with because they had a priest or a reverend back home that actually gave them assisted them with these cases. The people would contact the priest, and the priest would kind of bring them in for these cases.
Sure.
And give them kind of like the case manager or whatever.
Yeah.
He would get all the information, and he would send Ed and Lorraine Warren in, and they were needed on the cases. So, and it was, like I said, around that time where they were starting to, where Caroline Heaps was really trying to convince everybody there that these guys were just basically full of it. And I remember the one last scene, I don't remember it exactly, but it was something about in the kitchen where they were stacking all this stuff on top of stuff or whatever.
The investigation stuff.
Yeah. No, not the investigation stuff. It was actually stacking kitchenware on top of other kitchenware and stuff like that. And I don't remember the scene exactly, but there was something where they decided that Janet could have done it themselves, or herself, or something like that, or the kids could have done it themselves. So because they had no proof in the movie that the kids weren't doing this themselves and this was actual activity, they had to leave. And in the movie,
Caroline?
Peggy.
Okay.
Peggy was obviously pissed, because she's like, well, I called you in for this, and, and she wasn't happy with Ed and Lorraine Warren, because they had other cases to attend to, like I keep saying, and all these researchers just had to go along with it, saying there's nothing, everything literally happens to the kids, and not us. That's one of the claims in the movie, was that everything was happening to the kids and not them.
That's a common situation, though. I mean, often children are more affected than anyone else.
Exactly. And because they could not prove that it wasn't just the kids doing stuff, they had to leave. And then when Ed and Lorraine Warren are on the... Now, I'm speaking in the movie, not factual here, remember. When Ed and Lorraine Warren were on the train then, they were listening to audio tapes, and then they played they were listening to one of the audio tapes from Bill's ghost, from the spirit of Bill Wilkins, and they couldn't make it out. So then they played it backwards, and it came out in clear English, like something about like crying out for help and stuff like that. And then they're like, it was then when they got the hint that this.
That's when Lorraine and him said, "Whoa, we have more than one spirit."
Yep.
Or more than one dimensional being.
Yeah, because Bill was trying to tell the truth to them, but then this older spirit cut Bill off because
the nun.
Yeah, the nun cut Bill off because it was like, no, you're the puppet here. You're supposed to make everybody think that you're here and I'm not. So, but you know, being Lorraine Warren, she is a psychic, and she could actually see this nun when nobody else could, and basically, so she knew that the nun was there, but she couldn't prove it, and they had slight proof, kinda, that the Wilkins guy was there, because of, you know, the Janet's voice. But I mean, how could that not be proof enough right there when they're making them take a sip? Oh, plus, I remember that this actually kind of makes sense now that I think about it. I remember that the reason why the camera wouldn't pan directly on Janet while she was making these noises is because the spirit had said that it would only talk through her if no one was looking, and the camera, or basically if no one was looking. That being said, that probably because...
That's right, they turned it like 180, right?
Yeah, they turned it 180 away from her because the spirit had said that it would talk to them, but no one could look, and they could record the voice, but no video at all. And now that I think about it, it was likely because you know, this demon, the nun, had ordered the person to say, "Hey, no one looks at this."
It didn't want to be revealed.
It didn't want to be revealed, exactly. It didn't want to be revealed that, you know, so basically the entire thing was basically all about
the nun,
the Wilkins being the puppet and the nun. But like I said, there's no mention of the nun in real life. So they put.
Is there a mention of the stick man in real life?
Nope.
Or what's his name? The
crooked man.
Crooked man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. So that was another character made up.
But yeah, because like I said, there's no mention of the Crooked Man or the nun in real life. However, they put the Crooked Man and the nun both in the film.
For future movies.
For future movies, exactly. And they did play it out really well because, I mean, that nun was one scary character. That face was pretty creepy.
Yeah, I mean, other than, I remember the Crooked Man all of a sudden growing up, you know, like, and he kind of looked neat, you know.
Yeah.
Even in his most scariest, he had these little eyes behind the hat. And
exactly.
Had glasses.
Had glasses. Very, very creepy person.
Creepy, but the nun is far more terrifying.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I remember a lot of part of what made the Crooked Man creepy was the intense bass that they put into the film when the man was walking down the hall.
Oh yeah.
They put like a damn dinosaur was walking down the hall, like that kind of bass. They put like.
Well, that's the sound effects are sometimes creepier than the actual movie.
I know that's literally what added to the creepiness of the Crooked Man. Like it was literally putting up with this much noise.
I totally agree.
But anyway, we are all done with the show, right? For the day, and like I said, we'll get to the Haunting in Georgia or the Haunting in Connecticut movie some other time. We're gonna hit some other topics next week. And we'll put a little poll on our site asking, what people want us to research and talk about. So, you guys have a fantastic...
Good evening.
Yeah, fantastic night.
And thank you for listening.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week, Sunday at 7 as usual.
Thank you.